Welcome to The Jewish Lens, a podcast to discuss anything and everything from a Jewish perspective. Now, please help me welcome the man who controls the media, your host, Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen, and today I am thrilled to welcome someone who's actually been more like family to me. He's a lifelong friend. One person, our parents were friends beforehand, but he's also the founder and chairman of one of the largest independently owned PR firms in the United States, 5WPR, which has been named one of the top 50 PR agencies globally and one of the top 3 agencies in New York. He's also the author of For Immediate Release, Shape Minds, Build Brands, and Deliver Results, and Game-Changing Public Relations. Please help me welcome Ronn Torossian. Ron, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is such an odd dynamic for me since I know you pretty much my whole life. But, well, I know there are definitely some things that I don't know about you. So this will be fun for me. So let's start with going back. You grew up in New York. Our parents were friends. You lived in Brooklyn for a while before moving to Riverdale. I know our parents were always very Jewish-minded, but was that something ingrained in you as a young age?
So first, you made a mistake. I was born in Brooklyn, and
Yeah.
we lived in Brooklyn when I was born, apparently, to be close to your parents.
But then I know I said you were in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
We grew up
When I
across the
was
street.
born, I think I was born in the building across the street from where, well, I mean, not just your parents, from where you and you guys were living.
It was right across.
So I would tell you that, Judaism growing up for me was obviously something, very present in the house.
Yeah.
We both had, a similar, very Zionistic, we both had very Zionistic homes, which was, of
Right.
course, the connection between our families. I would tell you that it was something I was certainly very conscious of. One of my earliest memories is my grandparents both had a tattoo on their left arm. It's funny, I just got my first tattoo, which I'll show to you here. But my parents both had my grandparents both had a tattoo on their left arm. And I vividly remember the numbers on their left arm. I remember that faded ink. And I can tell you that, the Holocaust, Judaism, Israel, from a very young age, these were things that were very much, present in my home.
Yeah, same. I remember that too. I remember always my parents always talking about that to me also. But who were some of your influences when you were growing up?
So I would tell you who were some of my influences growing up. I would tell you, as a young, I would say, let's say very young, certainly sports had a big influence on me. We used to talk about the Yankees and the Mets. I remember all the time.
We might be talking about it again in a few weeks.
I would tell you that, certainly baseball had a big influence on me when I was very young. Basketball had a big influence on me when I was very young. As I got older, Jewishly, I would tell you Rabbi Avi Weiss has had and continues to have a very large impact on my life. A wonderful American Jewish leader, wonderful rabbi.
You're still close with him?
I am still very close to him. He's a wonderful man, great Jew, wonderful rabbi, like a father figure to me. I would tell you that he had an influence on me when I was younger. And of course, the Beitar youth movement had a big influence on my Jewish life growing up.
Well, I'll talk about that later, but I know you've also had like a very strong work ethic. I think a lot of that came from your mom. But when you were a kid, I don't remember at all you being interested in PR. So when did that kind of like start getting into you?
Well, I started working at the age of 11 in a pizzeria. I worked at a pizzeria across the street from my house in the Bronx. I moved to the Bronx, I was 3. Born in Brooklyn, moved to the Bronx, I was 3. From the age of 3 until after graduating college, I lived in the Bronx. I started working at age 11 in a pizzeria across the street from my house, and I worked there from age 11 until 23, 24, 50, 60, 70, a zillion hours a week.
Wow.
I was always interested in reading. I was always interested in writing. I always read. I always wrote. Politics always interested me. I kind of fell into PR by accident. Like a lot of other young people, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Law was something I considered. Psychology was something I considered. Writing was something I considered. Media was something I considered. My uncle's a journalist. So that had some, impact and influence in, in terms of how I thought. And PR is just kind of something I fell into, I guess I'll say by accident. It's not that I dreamed of becoming a, PR professional growing up. No, certainly can't say that.
I didn't know that you liked writing so much as a kid. That we had in common. I didn't even know that. So,
Yeah, I enjoyed. I used to journal. I used to journal a tremendous amount. I used to write a tremendous amount, and I enjoy it. It's as I've gotten older, I'm not doing as much of it. The world makes you crazy, and so I write a lot of
yeah.
short form. But I used to write a lot of long form stuff, and I enjoy it.
Well, before I go further with PR and your career, so can you tell me and whoever's watching, what is it exactly that a PR company does, and what are your responsibilities?
So I am the founder of 5WPR.
Right.
Thankfully, we are one of the largest independently owned PR firms in the United States. What does a PR firm do? So a PR firm is really, so my name is the 5W, my PR firm is named 5WPR. 5W stands for who, what, when, where, and why. A PR firm does a lot of different things. So it might be about building buzz. It might be about creating a story. It's about managing a narrative. So it could be anything from promoting something and making it sound great and wonderful, shaping a story, killing a story, managing a reputation. So it's a wide variety of different things along the lines of, shaping stories, creating narratives. What do I do all day? A lot of different things. Professionally here, I'm in the office today in New York. Everything from meeting with clients and planning, ongoing campaigns. Of course, owning a business, a lot of it is about managing people, talking to people, dealing with people. I would tell you one of the best things about the PR business is every day is something different. Every day you have the blessing to work on. Sometimes it's a consumer brand, sometimes it's a corporate brand, sometimes it's a technology company. It really every day is something different, and that's one of the blessings I think of working in this industry.
Well, you talked about like emergencies. So I was reading that you were like the number one person for like crisis management. That reputation there too. So you get calls all the time. Hey, I've got to get you to get ahead of something. So you get like calls like that.
All the time. It happens all the time. We do a lot of crisis PR. I've taught at Harvard University on crisis PR. Growing up as a New Yorker in New York City in the Bronx, there was always an emergency. There was always somebody crazy doing something, insane. I would tell you that, it's one of the most, rewarding parts of my job, I would tell you, is funny. I got a call yesterday. From somebody that was in a real panic about something. And I thought it could be a big story. It was already starting to make the rounds on Instagram and Twitter and things like that. This person really didn't do anything wrong, but they were scared. They were shocked. In other words, what do you do now, Jonathan? Your door rings and the Miami Herald is at your door and Channel 7 is at your door. And they say, Jonathan, we want to comment in 20 minutes about A, B, and C.
Mm-hmm.
Scary for people because, for most people, your life is going to change. Your life could change as a result of that story. We got that call. I got that call yesterday. And I told the person, I was with another colleague of mine that, what they did really isn't bad at all. And they should respond very quickly. We made a response video. I would tell you that within 3 hours, we had completely changed the story. This person who called me panicked. We made a response video responding to something in the national news that they were involved with. And very quickly, we turned around the story. Crisis PR is about moving very fast. The world moves very, very, very fast today. We're going to be on this call now for, X amount of minutes. When you hang up this phone, you will have, something in the news that happened that if you don't respond to, that news cycle starts and it starts very quickly and it moves very quickly. That's, one of the biggest changes I would tell you. People ask me about, what are changes in the news industry? It moves so fast right now, moves so quick right now.
And by the next day, something else is in the news and forgetting about the previous thing.
That's right. But if you were in the center of that storm, today as we're taping this, the news of the day is, the storms in Florida, the war in Israel, Trump versus Kamala. Those are the big stories. But if you are a small story and you are part of a unrelated story, that is the biggest thing in your life. That is the headline in your obituary. That is, I say to people sometimes when they're calling me, you are living right now the first line in your obituary.
Good line.
This is the opening paragraph of your obituary, and what do you want it to say? And that's one of the lines I often tell people, and I think it's the truth when they're living through a crisis. How you handle that crisis determines, the future of your many different things: relationships, lives, reputation, money, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a good line. Well, let's go back to UPR. I was read that your first start with PR really came from working with, former city council speaker Peter Vallone Sr. So how did that come about? You're working at a pizza place. So how did that come about?
So first of all, I'll give you a secret. Don't believe everything you read.
Okay.
My kids and my kids have long learned this from me. Very, very, very many years ago. It's a secret I'll give all your readers. Don't believe everything you read. That's the first thing I'll tell you. I graduated college, and I moved to Israel. I lived in Israel for about 2 years or so, and I was working in politics. I was working in politics, and somebody from Beitar came to me and says to me, Peter Vallone is in Israel. He was the city council speaker at the time, and he needs somebody to help him with PR. I said, what do I know about PR? Guy says to me, you're helping Likud people all the time. I was working in PR on Likud in Israel, and he says to me, help Peter Vallone for 2 days. I said, I don't know who Peter Vallone is, but I think the guy paid me, I don't know, $1,000 or something for 2 days. For $1,000 back then, and for 2 days, I would have,
wow.
I would have walked barefoot through a village for a week. Had no money. And I did it for a few days for the guy. And I remember I really enjoyed it. I remember, to me at this time, this was a senior person, a very well-known person. And I was doing very good work. And I remember he was impressed with me. I think I was, 24. And when I came back to the United States, when I came back to New York, I said to myself, okay, maybe I'll check out this thing called PR.
Oh, so you worked for a couple of PR companies also, and before starting 5W. So what led to the decision to go out on your own? And to me, was that nerve-wracking at all? Worried?
So first, something that always drove me from a very young age was making money. We didn't grow up with any money. We both of us didn't grow up, wealthy at all. And, I grew up primarily in a single mother household. And from a very young age, I was determined to make money. From a very young age, I was determined that my children would not want for things. It was something that was ingrained in me for as long as I can remember. In my head was, I am going to make money. I am going to get wealthy. That was in my head. I'm going to be successful. And so that was really a driving force for going on my own. The other thing is I'm never good at listening to rules. I always get into trouble. So I worked for 2 other companies, and I did very well at both of them. But I also realized that, I wanted to build something much larger on my own. I'm not good at corporate politics. I didn't want to be good at corporate politics. I've always been somebody that if you're a fucking idiot, I'm going to tell you you're a fucking idiot. You're allowed to curse. We're allowed to curse.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? So and if you're a fucking idiot, I'm going to tell you you're a fucking idiot. And when you work for a company, that's not the case. I remember being, like 26 or 27. I remember it so clearly. And maybe I was 25. I worked for this PR firm. And you had to sign this sign-in sheet. It was a sign-in sheet, small PR for probably 40, 50 employees there. I'm probably there about a year. I mean, I made it from day one. I made it my mission, like Kobe Bryant, I was going to be the first one in and the last one out. That's it. That's what I said to myself. Nobody's going to beat me in. Nobody's going to beat me out. And I was doing at this point, I don't know, 70 hours a week. And everybody else was doing 45, right? 40, whatever they were doing. And I was by far, the most outstanding employee of the company, the CEO. And I remember the head of HR, says to me, you have to sign the sign-in sheet. I didn't sign it one day. I said to her, I left last night at like 8:45. I left last night at 9 o'clock at night or something. What are you talking about the sign-in sheet? You left at 4:30, 9 o'clock.
Right.
And you need to sign within the sheet. So on purpose, I took the sheet and I didn't sign within the lines. I wrote across 2 lines. She wrote me a thing in my file. I said, she wrote me like a complaint. You're not drawing. You're not signing within the boxes. Everybody needs to sign within the boxes. Everybody needs to sign within the boxes. Well, that's the rule. The Israeli in me, the Bronx boy, man, what the fuck are you fucking talking about? Signing within the fucking boxes. But that's what the company is. That's what a company is. And I realized it from a young age that this woman, giving me a hard time about this. And I said to myself, I got to go work for myself. And there was a bunch of reasons for it. And I knew I was also really good. I knew I was also really good at what I was doing. I knew I was really good. And I went off on my own. And I think I was 28 when I started my firm. I'm very happy I did it. Yeah, but of course it was scary and terrifying. It's still scary and terrifying. Anything that you do is about, fear and conquering that fear. But it was scary.
I love that 5WBR came about because a woman was getting on you about a sign-in sheet.
There were so many moments like that. Thank God I've had a little bit of success. I remember, I taught at NYU a few years ago, a disgusting, horrible place these days.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
But and I've been to a bunch of schools, many of them of which disgusting, horrible anti-Semitic institutions. But I spoke at NYU I taught at NYU a few years ago. I remember somebody asked me, what are some of the defining moments? I will never forget ninth grade. I was graduating, whatever it is, junior high school. And this is junior high school in the 80s in the Bronx. In other words, much like where you went to, high school in Brooklyn, this was a zoo in the 80s and 90s when we grew up, as you remember, right? And same thing, I remember this substitute teacher, giving a speech about, the graduation was in some remote place in the Bronx. This is before GPS and Waze and these things. My mother has to take me by myself. And when I said to her, where is this place? And this woman says to me, well, if you don't know where it is, well, then you shouldn't be graduating. And, really embarrassed me in front of this 70 people or something. I responded to her right away. I said to her, you're a substitute teacher in the Bronx and you're insulting a kid? You're a substitute teacher in the Bronx and you're insulting a child in front of 70 people. These are things that, stuck with me that, and they're things that I take today. I want to empower young people when I speak to them. I want to make young people feel better. And so, teachers and leaders and, they can have an impact on you for the good and for the bad.
Of course. Yeah, 100%.
And so I remember the substitute teacher in the Bronx who had a real, negative effect on me. And I remember it clearly, insulting a kid. My poor mother, had to drive wherever the hell it is at 8 a.m, to some place in the Bronx. We don't know where the hell it is. And I know the first thing my mom was asking me is, well, Rob, where is it? And I didn't know. And, I can tell you now at the age of 50, I remember that moment. I remember where I was sitting in that classroom. And fuck her.
Do you remember who your first big client is when you started? You felt, wow, I can't believe.
I can't say it these days.
You can't.
No, I can. I can. It's 2024. My first big client was Sean Combs.
I thought I thought that's so.
My first. So when I say I can't, when I say I can't say it, in 2024, my first big client, of which I used to be very proud to say, was Sean Puff Daddy Combs. Saying Sean Puff Daddy Combs in 2024 is a lot different than saying Sean Puff Daddy Combs back in, 2003 when I started this company. But yeah, he was our first big client.
So I was reading, I was looking through all your accolades, just so impressive. I mean, you were named twice, 40 under 40 back in 2006, 2007. So what are some of you actually already mentioned what some of the reasons why people, get your things, but what in your mind, what makes 5W stand out from other PR agencies?
I would tell you that, so first of all, I've been thankful to build a business over the last 20-something years, really by hard work. I would tell you that, hard work is part of it. I would tell you creativity. I think we have very creative, very smart people here.
Yeah.
I think, my joke about signing within the boxes, everybody here knows that there aren't boxes, that, there are the ability to go out and create, the ability to go out and think differently. Those are the things I think at this company we try to create. And those are the things I think that we've been able to continually to win. Don't be afraid to fail. Bring your clients interesting, different types of campaigns, interesting, different types of thoughts. I think people hire us. Because we're smart, because we're going to tell them the truth, because we're not going to always tell you yes. And those are some of the things I think have been enabled us to build this business over the last, 22 years.
One of the things, well, let me talk about first your book, for immediate release. I remember when you were doing it, you gave me an advanced copy to look through, and I was fascinated because I knew nothing about PR, and it was interesting to learn about all that stuff. So tell me about the book itself for those who don't know, and what prompted you to write it.
I've written 2 books for immediate release, to the updated version. I'm working now on my third book. About 80% of the way done, I think. What prompted me to write it was, well, first of all, it was a calling card for me. It still is a calling card for me. Rather than giving you my business card, here's who I am, I'd rather give you a book of here's how we think about PR. Again, I've always been fascinated about writing. I think that, one of the things that I see, one of the things that, bothers me, is what I see being taught in universities about PR and the reality of what PR is are two completely different things. It's two different, universes. In other words, what is being taught about public relations and images and brands is completely different than what you can get images and brands to pay for. There's academia when it comes to PR, and then there's reality of what, PR is. For me, I make a living and build a business based on what you're going to pay for when it comes to PR. I don't care about, what you think and what, your theories are. I care about what's going to make, what's going to pay the light bill. So I would tell you again, what we do is we shape stories, we shape narratives. It might be a TikTok campaign. It might be, affiliates on YouTube. It might be celebrities. It might be shaping a New York Times or a Wall Street Journal or a political story. These are all kind of, different things that on a day-to-day basis we are creating, whether it's content, whether it's written content, whether it's a annual report in front of me that I'm editing now. All of these different things, are ways to communicate with the public, and the public is all different publics, right? So for you, Jonathan Rosen, an author, podcast, that's your audience. That's the audience you want to reach, right? That's different than a, podcast for African-American, lesbian women that exist. That's different than a podcast for a beauty company. That's different than a podcast our children will be watching. And our children, your children in Florida are watching different stuff than my kids in New York. Our children in India are watching different things than children in China, than different things, And so all of these things are about, PR, brand, images, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, you mentioned the Times in there. That's one of the things that's been amazing to me to see is you featured like nationally in a lot of things. You've been interviewed on national news programs. I see you have bylines in national papers. So you become like the face of PR in many ways, like the go-to in a lot of different in general. So how did all that start? When was the first time that you were asked to do that? Did it just like blow your mind?
It still blows my mind. When I started when I started my business, okay, my friends used to call me and say, hey, I would have 3 employees here or 4 employees here. And I would get a call at the front desk, the CEO of Nike wants to talk to you, the CEO of, the CEO of Virgin Atlantic. But it was always my best friends fucking with me. In other words, it was always my friends were teasing me. Yeah, big shot PR guy, you're so important. This is, the CEO of Nike, the CEO of this, my buddies were busting my chops. After a year or two, it stopped because thank God we started to get really successful people calling us. And I remember it. That I remember. In terms of building a brand, Jonathan, I've just always done it. You go for it. You don't take no for an answer. That's always how I've thought of it. I would tell you that you asked about, when it started, did it, shake my mind? It did. I remember going when I was going to Harvard. I remember saying to myself, like, I could never have gotten into Harvard. No, they would have never let me go near Harvard. So what I would tell you is that, when it started, it always blew my mind, but it still blows my mind. A few years ago when I was going to Harvard, I remember sitting on the train. I said, oh my God, I'm going to speak at Harvard. Like I have to prepare for this. And I remember studying the materials that we were going to be teaching and looking at it. And I remember about 5 minutes into the class, I said to myself, that's it, I got this. They're not going to get me. And I was great. And so I think, it's just about preparation. I used to say to people, I know Donald Trump a little bit, but you look at him as a New Yorker, you say to yourself, this guy's running the world, he's a normal schmuck. And I've met enough people that are very, very well known that, I say to myself, these are normal schmucks. I grew up watching, hip hop. I grew up with New York, and my first clients when I was getting started were hip hop people. And so the people I was around were guys I grew up with. These are the type of people I grew up with,
But no different than your normal friends.
Sean Combs, Jay-Z, Fat Joe, these guys are a few years older than me. They're from my neighborhoods, In other words, I grew up with people like this. So, these were the first guys that I was doing business with Sean Combs and Jay-Z and Fat Joe and their managers and their agents. And I was comfortable with those people.
Sure.
It's funny, you talk about, being scared and building my business. Hip hop was one of the first things I worked in when I built my business. But frankly, as a boy from the Bronx, as a New York City guy, I was comfortable with these people. These were the guys I grew up with. These were the people we grew up around, right? So working with them for me really wasn't scary because I said, these are guys I know. And same thing when I started my business, I went after Israeli technology companies. Israelis were people I was comfortable with. In other words, I can talk to I can talk to an Israeli. Um, and so that, those were kind of things that I felt. So yeah, when you say these things to me, of course, as somebody I know my whole life, it's still weird to me. My kids will still tease me. People come up to me all the time and talk to me. I have no idea who they are, frankly. And I can say it here, yeah, because I've been in a meeting 15 years ago with one person. We spoke for 5 minutes. I bluntly don't remember, and I have a bad memory to begin with. And my kids always tease me about that, they meet somebody and who knows me. And I'm sorry, I'm not sure who that is. And so that's still, I mean, maybe it's not nice to say, but it's the truth. So, it still bugs me out. It's still something that's like always weird. I mean, I'm dating myself by telling some of these stories, but I like to tell all the stories so I don't betray, I don't like to betray trust. So I can talk about Rudy Giuliani. For me as a New Yorker, before he lost his mind in the last few years, Rudy Giuliani was a real hero, right? Any New Yorker, again, we're in a new era in New York, back to the good old, back to the old shit days. But
Yeah.
Giuliani, for those of us who grew up in New York City in our era, really turned around this city. For many of us, he was a great savior. And I remember the first time that I, really got to know him and sat in a conference room with him. He said to me, "You're that guy from 5WPR. You're that guy building 5WPR." And he knew a bunch of things I was
That's
working
amazing.
on. And I was so impressed about it. And it's happened to me with a bunch of people. It happened to me with, very many, very well-known people that met me and said, "Yeah, I know you're doing 1, 2, and 3. Good for you." And that's still, always weird to me. Now I've gotten used to it, of course. And now I'm aware that, we've built a business and, what we do is watched and what we do is seen. I'm blessed to be involved with many different things. But yeah, it's weird if you're asking. Yes, of course. To hear you talking about these things, it's weird for me also.
Look, I'm very impressed. Very proud of you. Very impressed.
And the other thing that's also weird, it's about that somebody says, then there'll be people that I know for like 15 years and would speak to every day. And so then I don't speak to them for a while. They're like, "Do you remember me?" I'm like, "I spoke to you every day for 8 years. How do I not remember you?" Because you're on TV or in the press or something, you don't. That's there are people literally that I know for years that they're like, "Well, how do I not remember you? You lived next door to me for 12 years. And I remember you."
Oh, that's I'm glad about that. So I wanted to shift gears a little bit. You're very Jewish minded, like we said, involved in Jewish causes. Post October 7th, in many industries, there's been, and including publishing, which I've seen a lot of. There's been like an upswell of anti-Semitism and hate against Jews in various capacities. Like I said, I see it in publishing against Jewish authors. I see it against celebrities who dare speak out in support of Israel. Have you seen that in your industry?
Very much so. Anti-Semitism is something which is plaguing this country, is something which is a plague upon the world. Absolutely 1000% present in the PR business, very present in every industry, in every business.
Awful. And you were actually, all right, you've been out to the kibbutzim in Israel with the terrorist attack. You described that experience, but what was that like?
I am a proud Israeli. I will say to you that, the thing I'm the most proud of in my life, besides my children, is being Israeli. Most important thing in my life today. I live part of the year in Israel. I'm blessed to have a home in Tel Aviv, the greatest city on earth for me. I went to I was in the United States on October 7th, 2023. I went to the kibbutzes a few weeks afterwards. I went to, on October 7th, I was at the United Nations. Okay. October 7th, 2023. Yeah. I was at the United Nations. I am, involved and friendly with representatives of the government of Israel.
Yeah.
And I work in PR. And so, of course, I always help and will always help my country and my people. I went very shortly thereafter to the state of Israel, and I had to see these things from my own eyes because I was in New York as an American. I heard things people were saying, and I had to go and see it. I had to go there. I didn't go. I've never been to the concentration camps because it was too emotional for me. And I remember I said to my daughter, my older daughter went in April 2023, and I said to her, you know what, I'm not going to go. It's too depressing for me. I didn't go with her to Auschwitz and the camp she went to. I went a few weeks afterwards to the things in the to the places in the South where people were burnt alive. It is worse than Auschwitz. It is worse than Auschwitz. They burnt people alive. They did things that are undescribable. The sheer brutality. When I was there, still, I remember the smell. I remember the smell of what it smelled like. I remember the claw marks, the things that happened in Israel, the things that I saw, the things that our people have been through and are continuing to go through are the most awful things in the world. They are things that people went to dance in an empty field and they got kidnapped and butchered and raped and just simply horrible, awful things. I'm very happy that I went. We're talking about a lot of different things here. I grew up in a home where my mother always spoke about the Holocaust. As you know, you knew my mom well. And I will always speak about before the war and after the war. For me, there will always be before October 7th and after October 7th. And those American Jews, those Jewish Americans who don't know that yet, they've lost their mind. And I will tell you more than that for your listeners, and I hope many people will share this. This is not a battle of Jews, folks. This is a battle of the civilized against the uncivilized. What they did to our people in Israel, they will do to the West. And they are doing wherever they go. This is a battle of the civilized versus the uncivilized. That's all this is about. And what I saw in Israel was very, very, very difficult. Very, very, very difficult.
No, I imagine it would be. Like, I can't even read it to it. It still hits me. Like I said, after October 7th, I'm changed forever. It's not hyperbole. I'm changed forever.
We all have to change, Jonathan. In other words, you just can't go on with life. And those people who think that you're going to go on with life, if you ever said to yourself, what would I have done in the 1930s when the Nazis were coming? Well, folks, you're doing it now. Because if you look at what's happening on university campuses today, it is just sickening. I cannot imagine who would send their kids to Columbia, to NYU, to Harvard. Who would go to these Marxist, awful, terrible institutions? And I'll say to anybody watching it, shame on you if you put a penny there. I don't care why. I don't care what. They want to murder Jews, period, end of story. That's it. No ifs, no nuance, no nothing. And there wasn't nuance and there isn't nuance when it comes to any other people except for the Jewish people. No nuance at all.
Well, they're indoctrination centers right now. That's all the schools are right now.
Indoctrination centers, and they might only get worse. They might only get worse. I would tell you, I've met and spoken to, and I'm involved with many important different things since the 7th of October that are life-changing for us, for our people. These are things that, I got arrested at my daughter's college campus a few months ago.
I saw that. I wasn't going to bring it up.
I'm proud of it. I want to bring it up today. I want to bring it up today. I want to bring it up today, Jonathan. As a lifelong friend, I want to bring it up. And I want to explain what happened there, which I haven't done in depth. I want to do it with you.
Okay.
My daughter, my oldest child, my baby, my wonderful daughter, who always teaches me something. My children on October 7th posted on the morning of October 7th, 2023, a picture of our terrorists, our beautiful terrorists in Tel Aviv, and sent home. Throughout the month of October, there was anti-Semitism happening at Syracuse University. Okay? Happening at Syracuse University in upstate New York. There was a swastika painted on a door on October the 9th.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
A professor got up on campus and spoke about the horrible, awful Jews. A group of parents started calling Chabad, started calling the president's office. No response from the university at all. Okay. We founded on October 15th, 2023, the Syracuse Jewish Parents Council to be a voice to speak to the university. Okay. The Chabad rabbi was with the Chabad rabbi, a few parents. We got together. We formed Syracuse Jewish Parents Council to speak to the university. We could not get a return call from the university. We did not get a return.
That's a familiar theme. Yeah.
450 Jewish parents could not get a response call from the president of Syracuse University. I pay full freight for Syracuse University. I'm a full paying customer.
Yeah.
Okay. Could you imagine if 450 angry black parents couldn't get a return phone call the day after George Floyd?
It'd be all over the news. Yeah.
Could you imagine if 450 gay and transgender parents couldn't get a return call?
Right.
We couldn't get a return call. The encampments start at Syracuse University. Threats start. Violence starts. A young man was beaten by somebody screaming, Heil Hitler. No arrests were made. No arrests were made. No arrests were made. And I'll get better than that. Syracuse University explained, well, I'm sorry, sir. It's off campus. They went to that same frat house where the boys an hour later were playing Am Yisrael Chai, and they told the boys, turn down that music. So it wasn't campus when it came time to arrest somebody, but it was campus when you tell these Jewish boys to turn down their music. I am driving up to school to pick my daughter up from school, and somebody, a woman calls a single mother, calls and tells me, my son was beaten up last night at Syracuse. I said to her, what happened? My Jewish boy was beaten up. I'm afraid. I'm scared. University won't call me back. This one won't call me back. That one won't call me back. Meanwhile, there's somebody walking around campus threatening Zionists at Syracuse.
All over. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this Zionist is one you're not going to threaten. This Zionist is not going to get threatened so easily. I went to campus with a group of other parents and students. We stood in the center of the encampment. I was arrested for refusing to leave campus because there was dozens of others, Palestinians my age, standing around campus. They were not asked to leave. I was asked to leave. I was asked to leave as a trespasser. I was arrested. An hour and a half later, I was out. No problem. Great. All charges dropped. Who were the people harassing, saying, death to the Zionists? It was a convicted murderer on my daughter's campus. A convicted murderer. I would ask all your readers, go and read the story. Yeah. Go and Google about it. Now we'll get press on it because of it. And I'm happy to talk about it. I will not shy away from this. Parents who permit people to scream death to the Zionists on your campus, folks, what are you doing? Would you permit them to say death to the blacks? Of course you wouldn't, because it's wrong. It's wrong. It's horrible, and it's wrong. Would we permit people to scream death to the gays? We wouldn't. So for some reason, Jews seem to think it's okay to sit by as our children are being harassed. Well, thankfully, this year, there has been none of that on Syracuse University's campus, because we will go again and again and again and challenge them, which parents nationwide, students nationwide need to do. So, you're talking about, these things plaguing us. It is upon each of us to stand up and to lead. This is not going to be something which just goes away. October 7th is not going to just fade into, October 7th might be the start of World War III. I'm sad to, inform people here. October 7th might be the start.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And look, I say the same thing all the time. I write it down on social media. If I understand people are afraid to speak up, but if you're not speaking up now, what are you waiting for? When are you going to speak up? This is the time.
Again, you're afraid to speak up? Well, folks, I believe we are living in Germany in 1939. I believe, I believe we are living in the darkest days of humanity. Yeah. Of humanity. This is, for me as a Jew, these are the worst, Jonathan, these are the worst things that have ever happened to our people in our lifetime. So we speak about, hey, I'm scared to speak up. Well, it might not be. Are you going to be scared to speak up when they come and take your neighbor? Are they going to be scared to speak up when they come and take you? Because, folks, Jewish history, I'm a Jew. Jewish history? Yeah. Jewish history tells us what's coming. So, they make a big deal. I was arrested on campus. How come during BLM, thousands of people were rightfully, during the George Floyd, terrible thing what happened to George Floyd, during those disturbances, people were rightfully, Martin Luther King is a hero in this country for civil disobedience. Right. I was arrested many times as a young man with Rabbi Avi Weiss, and I'm proud of it. Yeah. You must stand up for what's wrong. I find it shameful today that Jewish Zionists aren't standing up and protesting much louder. I find it shameful today that our community in publishing, in PR, in banking, in finance, in technology, in every industry, why aren't we standing up, guys? It's scary what's happening in this country. It's scary. Stand up and fight back.
My mother always used to talk to me about, like, make sure you have a passport just in case. And I was like, okay, ma, whatever. And then this is the first time in my life I think, hey, this is not such a far-fetched thing. This is something that you need to think about.
Your mother,
Yeah.
your mother is correct.
Yes.
Your mother is correct, and you should say it again, louder and louder, so all your listeners hear it. Have a passport. Jonathan Rosen's mom, who I grew up calling, who is my tia.
Yes.
My tia. This is my tia from the age from the time I'm born. My tia says have a passport if you're a Jew. At the age of 50, I will say have a passport if you are a Jew. This is what Jewish history tells us. And anybody who thinks we're crazy, just look at history, guys. And look what's happening now to our campuses. Look what's happening now to our cities.
I interviewed Shabas Kestenbaum on here and he said much the same thing that you were saying, that Harvard just totally ignored his calls. Always ignored his calls.
Shabas is a friend and a good man who I spoke to yesterday. Shabas is a friend and a valiant young Jew. Shabas will agree completely and entirely that Harvard University does not give a damn. Shai Davidi, a friend, will tell you that Columbia does not give a damn. So, folks, these are powerful people. Neither Shai Davidi nor Shabas Kestenbaum are, these Shai and Shabas are two brave Jews. Those are two strong Jews who stand up. And they're telling you, folks, fight back. And I don't know if we're fighting loud enough, and I don't know if we're fighting strong enough.
We're not.
So we talk about, civil disobedience. It's what that I did at Syracuse. So, of course, I'm happy I did it. It's necessary. We have to raise the voice of moral conscience. You have to do things that shake the world. You have to do things that stir the world, because otherwise, what's the purpose of this, folks? What are we doing? What are we waiting for here?
I agree. Look, I know you're very busy, and look, I appreciate you taking the time today. What's next for you? What are you working on next?
I just got a tattoo. Yay Tov. It says Yay Tov. It says it'll be good. So it has, a few different meanings for me. First, I grew up with my grandparents having a tattoo on their left arm. I wanted a tattoo on my left arm. Same way. And it reminds me to live as an Israeli. To live as an Israeli. Which is not to be an American Jew, which is not to be politically correct, which is to be Israeli, which is to go and tell the truth and to stand strong and to be who we are. And so I want that tattoo on me to remind me, both in America and in Israel, I'm Jewish and I'm Israeli, and that's wonderful. And it'll be good, to think and to believe and to push forward that things will be good. What's next for me? I'm excited about continuing to build my business. I'm excited about a lot of philanthropic, very important projects on Israel and the Jewish people I'm working on. And I pray things will be good, but I think, we are entering darker times before they're going to get better. No matter what the election results look like, I think we're in for a very tough ride as Jewish people. And it's scary, but you also got to be optimistic, and you have to go into that fire fighting. You have to go into that fire fighting. She asked me about, as we end this thing, was I scared building my business? I'm still scared. It's still fucking hard. It's still fucking tough. It's still difficult. But what choice do we have? Go and do it with a smile. Go and believe it's going to be good. Go and believe it's going to be good, and listen to your mother's words that, as Jews and our parents, our families, our friends all these years, we're friends when my parents were alive for being fighters. Your father of blessed memory, I remember your father walking around with big, bold Jewish necklaces everywhere he went with a big wide open shirt. Your father. I remember every vision, every memory I have of your father involves that. And a Mexican Jew who didn't take any shit. And this is what we're up against. And for our children and for our people, that's what I hope is next. And only good things.
Oh, again, like I said, it's more like your family than anything. And again, very proud of you, love you, and thank you for doing this.
Thank you, and I'm sending you back, and you and your family, hugs and love. And I'm telling all of your listeners also, listen to him more, share him more, and good things, Jonathan. Thank you. Have an easy fast and Shana Tova. Thank you.
Well, again, this has been The Jewish Lens. I'm Jonathan Rosen. And again, a very special thanks to Ronn Torossian. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thanks for tuning in to The Jewish Lens, where all items used was strictly kosher.